All right, Charlotte, thanks so much for doing this. Just
Yeah.
first off, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you got started, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Awesome. Thanks. Let's see. So my name is Charlotte. I am an EMDR therapist. I specialize in domestic violence and sexual assault services. I started working in the domestic violence field because I had gone through my own personal experience with it. And I ended up working at a shelter in the Seattle area. Loved that job. It was very strenuous. Worked there for a couple years and um, ended up becoming the manager of the program. Um, it was a really high stress job, and eventually I kind of figured out that I wanted to be doing the one-on-one work with folks more than the management. So I decided to transition into therapy, and I went to Antioch University in Los Angeles. I got a specialization in trauma there and got trained really early on in something called EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Um, and have, since just loved doing that work and have now gone private practice.
hmm
That's a
And
little
so,
about me.
yeah,
Mhm.
and so, you said that you've had work with those with individuals who have experienced domestic abuse. Do you still do that like now in your current practice?
I do. It's definitely like the primary focus of my practice. A lot of the folks I work with, I mean, it's mostly domestic violence, narcissistic abuse, or sexual assault. Um, and I really enjoy doing that work with people. I like doing the one-on-one kind of work with them, and I find that the EMDR is extremely effective for that.
hmm How so?
Great question. Well, so with EMDR, what it does is we really focus on the triggers that you have. And so someone coming from domestic violence is going to have all kinds of triggers in their day-to-day life. And so we focus in on the triggers and we use the eye movement to desensitize them to it. It's really pretty fascinating. It's like a little like ball that I have on the screen and it goes back and forth and it's pretty fun.
hmm is that
Yeah.
your main modality that you use, or do you like use other ones as well?
That is the one I lean heavily into. I use a little bit of somatic experiencing and internal family systems or parts work. I'm not, I have some training in somatic experiencing and a little bit in internal family systems as well, but definitely I'm certified in EMDR, so I'm most confident in that modality.
hmm What sorts of things have you learned in doing this kind of work? Like when you see clients, who have experienced domestic abuse, and that kind of stuff, what have they sort of told you? What are the main themes that you sort of notice?
Yeah, I think, for survivors of domestic violence, and other kinds of gender-based violence, I think it's something that is it's extremely, difficult to um like move on from, right? And I
hmm
think one of the biggest things is like a lot of people I work with, they have a hard time getting close to people. And so if they're interested in, pursuing new relationships after their previous relationships, it's really challenging. And can be really hard and scary for folks. So I love working with people around that, around building trust and helping them, gain more of tap more into their own intuition and, you know, tap into their inner strength and learning how to trust themselves again.
hmm Well, you hit on a good point, which is that the other day, I was in session with my therapist the other day, and she said, "Oh, why don't you take this attachment quiz?" Basically, what it is, it basically looks at your relationships, with your parents or with someone else, caregiver, what have you, and it sort of kind of gives an indicator of what your potential relationship or match is going to look like. So I thought that that was pretty cool.
Wow. Wow, that is really interesting. How did you feel about that?
I felt very surprising because, they ask you all sorts of questions like, you know, does this person in your life make you tr like listen to you? It goes through a bunch of different questions, but yeah, it's really fascinating.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. I'd love to know more about that. Did you say it was an attachment like quiz?
Attachment quiz.
Wow, interesting. Yeah. I would be really curious to learn more about that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'll send it to you after, but yeah.
Yeah, please do.
My next question is like, you know, what sorts of things have you learned in doing this kind of work? Yeah,
Yeah, I think that I think some of the things I've learned the hard way is self-care and working with burnout. It's something that is so common for folks in all kinds of helping fields. Um, you know, like the work is it is extremely rewarding, and I'm very passionate about it. And it's a balance of I want to do all these things, and how do I do these things, and how do I give enough time for myself? And so I have found having my own therapist is really, really important for me. I really love my therapist. And I think, yeah, just like managing self-care, like not burning the candle at both ends, because at the end of the day, like there's always going to be something to do when it comes to gender-based violence work. It doesn't stop. Um, at least, not in the foreseeable future or in our lifetime necessarily, but the hope is that it does someday, of course. Um, I think, yeah, it's like there's always something that we could be doing. And at some points, you just got to turn it off and have a little fun too. So I
yeah.
think that's what I'm trying to balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that self-care is important. Like just the other day, like I attended like a yoga outdoor yoga class
Oh,
and like
nice.
at Westlake. I live in Seattle. I like at
Mhm.
the Seattle waterfront. So it was pretty cool to be like around people that like yoga or just want to curious about it. So yeah, that's my form of self-care. I don't know about you. What your form of self-care is.
Yeah, that's a great one. I do love doing yoga. It's a really nice way. It's very restorative for the body, and I think there's so much in that, right? Like the mindfulness, the kind of moments that are a little meditative, at the end when you're doing savasana, right? You have a couple of minutes to wind down. Um, Generally, self-care for me can look at a number of ways. Sometimes it's doing things with friends, sometimes it's not doing things with friends, sometimes it's like going for walks and just kind of like letting myself be in nature. Those are definitely some of my biggest ones. Eating well, getting lots of sleep.
Yeah, which is hard for some people to do, get lots of
Y-
sleep.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So like what sorts of things do you hope to focus on in terms of something new? Like if you had to put one thing on your bucket list, what would be on it?
Yeah, so let's see. So aside from my therapy practice, I co-founded a nonprofit with one of my dear friends, and it's a holistic healing program for survivors of gender-based violence. So we do all kinds of things between, writing groups and support groups, things like that. And we're hoping to run a retreat this year, which would be so exciting. That's definitely on my bucket list. I'm hoping that we can swing that one 2026.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. This whole holistic healer thing. I actually know a friend of mine's parent. She's a holistic, I think it's a holistic teacher, holistic something, but
Cool.
focusing on wellness and like kind of that kind of stuff. So
That's
yeah, it's pretty cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, so like in terms of like to wrap this up, what can people who want to study EMDR but in like the like like in your particular specialty, what can they sort of learn and take away, and what tips do you have?
Yeah, I think for people who are curious about doing EMDR specifically with domestic violence, my belief is like starting with, because part one of the things with domestic violence, for instance, it's not just, physical abuse that happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's emotional, it's financial, it's, sexual abuse, all kinds of ways that people are experiencing abuse. And so sometimes when I'm doing work with survivors of domestic violence, when we start to think about, okay, what are the things that happened that we want to use EMDR to desensitize, right? It's almost like a flooding of there were so many events, right? Like so many different things happened. Where do we begin? So usually with folks who are interested in doing that kind of work, I believe starting with the beliefs, right? So what are the beliefs that they walked away from? What are they left with thinking about themselves? How do they feel about themselves? Are there negative, you know, things they're telling themselves like I'm not good enough or I'm not lovable or something like that? And kind of working with that belief and then going back and finding memories or experiences that are connected to that.
Mm,
So,
that's great. That's yeah. Okay.